All right, so sure. We've got a minute or two to spare. Speaking from having been at these kind of conferences before, if you can't hear any of the speakers today, do like the nice lady did this morning to Jack and holler it out so that the mics get fixed or they speak into the mics or anything like that. We're here to share what we've got, so be sure that everyone can hear it. If you can't hear it, somebody else can't, so holler at us so we know. Otherwise, we won't be able to fix it. You can just do the slides and I'll get over it, or do you want me to stand over here? All right, let's hope I don't yank my laptop off the thing and can still read my notes. I'll try and stay over here so my shadow's out of the way. How's that? Good? All right, cool. Well, I'm going to get started. Title, my name, where we are. This is me on Twitter. That's my blog where I post stuff. Not all of it's hacking related, not all of it's technology related, but I like to keep stuff that keeps me interested. So, before I even start, I learned this from places like this, people like you, blog posts that people like us write, Twitter mentions that somebody retweets of somebody explaining one simple thing in a VM or on an app or something like that somewhere. And a really good talk at DerbyCon last year. So coming to things like this, sharing what you know, learning, sharing, moving on, that's where it all comes from. The first security-related conference I went to was Bsides here in 2012, and I spoke last year, I spoke at DerbyCon, and I'm speaking here again. So don't be intimidated. Don't worry that your content is not going to change the world of security or ask hard questions. Present research. Present failed research and explain where your mistakes came from. You guys can help everyone get better. This is not objective. This is not all the answers. This is things that have worked for me, how I have gotten better, how I have tried harder, how I have done more things. It's just my opinion. This is where I've been. I've done these things and found success or failure and moved forward with them. It's going to cover the things I like. I like to use Twitter. I find good things there. I like Max. I like Kali. I like other things. That might not be your answer. The purpose of this talk is to show you that every answer is different. And this is what I try and keep as my guiding principle. Luke had the Force. The Dune guy had Don't Be Afraid. I have Try Harder. Everything I read about hacking is it's not easy. It takes a lot of work. You hear, there was a podcast once that said to be good at InfoSec, you need 10 years as a developer, 10 years as a sysadmin, 10 years as a DBA, and probably 10 years on help desk to learn how to talk to people. And that's for entry level. It is that hard. There are that many pieces to it, but it's not impossible. I started with an art degree and became an AppSec professional. And for the purpose of this is how I define hacking. Yeah, it can mean break things, but mostly it's learning things. I learned everything I know about computers by breaking my own systems and trying to put them back together. Later, I got lucky enough to have a job to keep things working, but that's where it goes. So you want to learn something in InfoSec or technology, and you go out to the internet, and this happens. You type in DIY hacking lab, and there are all of the links. What are good? What are bad? How do you make sense of any of that? What do you do? How do you make it work? How do you learn from it, more importantly, and turn that into something valuable? So, just to give some sort of structure, I have with an internet connection, without an internet connection, and how you make it all work and move forward. The number one place to do anything is Twitter. And if you don't follow InfoSec Taylor Swift, you're missing out on a lot of human content about security. He, she, it, I don't know. They cover a lot of ground, but they also cover the nuts and bolts of it. Communicating to individuals what matters about security and why. Jack made the point upstairs. That's the most important part, is explaining it. We all know parts of it, and we are very comfortable with that. But you have to get as comfortable explaining those parts to other people who don't know that. These are some of the accounts that I follow that I find good stuff. Articles, blog posts, funny, smart-ass remarks. It's a great place to keep track of everything that's current, because that's where everybody goes. You just drop in a few characters, you drop in a link or a retweet or a follow or a like, or you find new info. Staying current is just as important from other directions. Brian Krebs is an independent guy who's gotten some of the biggest breaches in the last few years. He's uncovered them by themselves, he's taken them apart, he's talked about how he found them, what they're doing, where those people are coming from. Risky.biz, that's the Risky Business podcast. If you have a commute, if you have downtime, if you do yard work and wear headphones, if you go for walks, runs, whatever, that's an excellent way to stay up on what's happening. Again, with a few smart-ass remarks sprinkled in here and there, but it keeps current. And he talks to vendors, not only about their products, but their opinions on the industry, their opinions on the news. He gets a lot of good people on that show. And my favorite is Ars Technica, because the staff on their security blog makes things relatable. They work hard to explain the technology of it, and they work hard to explain the impact of it. So that's all the stuff that I follow. How do I keep track of that? I time shift it. I read Twitter when I'm standing in line in the grocery store, when I'm waiting for coffee, when I'm waiting for lunch, when I'm doing something else, when I'm in the car with my wife waiting for her to do something. 10, 20 seconds on Twitter, I hit find good links, and I throw them in Instapaper. There's a button on my phone now that I just throw them in this account. Instapaper, Pocket, Read Later, anything like that will take a link from anywhere and throw it into a directory. So what I do is I just throw it all there in the inbox, and then later I read it and I save it in this complex structure if I think it's worth saving. If it's not worth saving, I just read it and delete it. Sometimes I don't even read it. I don't even know why I saved them half the time. But it gives me the opportunity to do things in stages and keep track of it. So those are a few other things. What if you want to get your hands dirty? You want to try breaking stuff. You want to learn how vulnerable apps behave. You want to learn how you do these sorts of things. These are all online interactive sites. You sign up for a login and you can go in and you can follow their exercises, follow their efforts. And then if you get stuck, you can go Google search it and find all the people who wrote down the answer. And if you can't figure it out, you can learn how to figure it out by repeating someone else's answer. Quick aside, the not safe for work on that top one came from, we had an AppSec group at work, and it was almost extracurricular. We got together, we read the news, we talked about their impact. Sometimes we tried to relate it to work, but it was mostly just for the conversation. So we got bored and we started doing some of the challenges on this site. We got to this one that says, I've been informed you have admirable hacking skills. The racist hate group is using their website to organize a gathering. We cannot let this happen. You have to gain access to their administrator page. So it wasn't unlike this gathering. There's a room full of people. There's a big projector. There just on one side was a glass wall open to our R&D department where everyone sat. And then we clicked this website. And everybody got really uncomfortable for a couple of minutes. And in strolled the VP who oversaw our group and was like, what are you guys doing? So you might want to try these out at home before you do it in a work environment or like in a public place, but something to keep in mind. And so those are all things that require an internet connection. You're doing them through a browser or through a web server, an app server. You're hitting something on the internet. To have a division, I have a home office. I have a home hardware setup too, and that's where I'm going with this. I built a lab. I have labs at work that I can use, but I can't break them. I can't intentionally cause serious damage to those work labs because they're production. They're somebody else's property. So I bought my own. Second-hand enterprise hardware is the best thing to build a lab from. You get a couple of year-old stuff for a tenth of retail. It's all supported by enterprise software, things like ESX. You can just install it and run it from a thumb drive or whatever, and you can get high-end servers, high-end desktops or workstations for a couple $100. I can't spend $2,000 on my home office. I spent $75 on an old workstation, and it's been running 10 VMs for the last couple of years. That was a good investment. What do you put on it? I say put a hypervisor. ESX is my favorite. That's what I learned at work. That's what I use at work. That's where I'm comfortable. There's others. If you have money, you can buy Hyper-V. If you don't, you can do Zen, Proxmox, things like that. There's tons of options out there just on how to set this stuff up, because virtualization is dirt cheap nowadays. My laptop can run 3 VMs, and it's only got 4 gigs of RAM, and it's a MacBook Air. So you have hardware. You have an idea what you want to do. Where do you go next? What do you do next to learn? I go here, VulnHub. These guys are incredible. There's stickers out on the table. They're super into community outreach. They work really hard because they do things like this. They host tons of vulnerable VMs, but they let people submit their solutions to them, and they track those, and they make them available. When I started a few years ago and I found Metasploitable and things like that, I found out-of-date blog posts that referred to a version I couldn't find with tools I don't understand, and they don't walk through it all. A lot of these walkthroughs go from downloading the ISO to full exploitation of the VM. They teach you everything you need to know in that particular instance about that particular solution. And everything on VulnHub covers the whole gamut. Web apps, system apps, forensics research, reversing, everything. If there's a little bit you want to know about security, VulnHub probably has something that you can find. If not, the people on the site, go to their blogs, backtrack, see what other kind of stuff they post on their blogs. I don't think any of these solutions are actually hosted by VulnHub. These are hosted by users. People like you and I who go out there, they download this VM, they figure out how it works, they make it work, they bust into it, they find the flag, and they're so excited they have to help other people do the same thing. That's not the only thing. VulnHub is my personal favorite. There are tons of other people doing all this other stuff. Just go out and Google stuff. Figure out what it is you want to learn. I want to learn how to break WordPress. Okay, so if you're a WordPress admin, you're going to want to know what's coming at you. Go and search WordPress vulnerabilities, WordPress walkthroughs, WordPress security. To adding InfoSec or pen test to any admin search I've done in the last 10 years has gotten me incredible results. I got locked out of a test account on a database. Couldn't find anything in the official documents. You type pen test to the end of locked out SQL Server, 10 results right away. How to get in if you have system access, don't have system access, have access to Metasploit, don't have much more actionable results, because security people are much better, I've found, at documenting their stuff. You might have to spend a few times going through results to find the right answer, but you'll get there. So what if you don't want a full VM, you don't want a full virtualized environment, you just have an extra box that has a single OS on it? GitHub. Everybody likes to share everything they've got out there. Some people use it for version control, some people use it for sharing, some people use it for publicity, but especially at work, we've been putting together CTFs in the last few years to teach people, to train people, to reward people. You can go to GitHub and you can find vulnerable VMs or intentionally vulnerable or CTF or anything like that. However, there's an exception to that. You're downloading raw code that may or may not have documentation, and you may or may not know what it does, so there might be some of this. I downloaded an OWASP CTF application to use at work. It took me 2 weeks of learning PHP, MySQL, Apache, on top of already all the Debian stuff I knew, just to make it work. Then I had to take it apart and make it do what I wanted it to do. We had to have challenges that the group we had could complete. We had to rebrand it so that it looked like our stuff, so that people wouldn't just get turned off. But I tried harder. I made it work. So what if you don't want to do the security side, but you're looking at the admin side? That's how I got into this, doing sysadmin stuff, learning that. Go to DistroWatch. Pretty much any Nix OS, they've got all the documentation you can think of, sorted by what it's related to, how it came about. They show you how it ranks in their downloads, what the official sites are, what the mirrors are, where the forums are, where the users are, all that kind of stuff. It's an incredible resource. What if you don't want to use Unix? Microsoft helps out too. I don't know what they replaced MSDNs with, or if they replaced MSDNs, but they give you IE VMs. I haven't had a reason to find out, but I assume you can do more than just test IE with these VMs. They don't last very long. They're probably license limited to a week or two, but still, if you're on a budget, free is better than nothing. And that's an incredible resource that you can pull out and you can use for stuff. Even if you do want to test IE, but you want to learn how to exploit stuff through a Windows VM with just Windows tools, give it a shot. And another great, incredible place to find tools for sysadmin or security stuff is vendors. They like to promote themselves. And they like to get their people's hands on their stuff, because then you might buy it. So people give out their software, people give out ISOs or live VM images of their stuff. At work, we've done it to use network stuff, network appliances, switches, load balancers, routers, gateways, spam appliances, all that kind of stuff. Question? Yeah.
They've actually, EMC even has virtual SAN environments that will act like a real SAN.
Virtual SANs. I didn't know about that. I only knew about FreeNAS stuff. So, yeah. EMC does virtual SAN environments you can download and learn with. It's incredible. When I started looking at becoming a sysadmin in 2005, you needed 50 grand if you wanted to test Cisco stuff, if you wanted to test EMC stuff, high-end switches, or you needed a job doing it. You couldn't do it for free on a used desktop because virtualization wasn't where, vendors weren't where they were. They weren't trying to get that kind of penetration yet. But now you can do all this at home on a consumer internet connection with consumer hardware. It's incredible. Crap, wrong button. There we go. VMware has a directory of these. I haven't really had luck with that, but I wanted to throw it up there because that's where I got my start looking at this sort of thing. It's my experience that the links on here are outdated, but it'll give you a list of vendors to go to their site, find the current thing. Sometimes you have to register, sometimes you need a login. You'll probably have to talk to sales about it. It's not that hard of a process. You're going to get things you couldn't get otherwise without a serious capital investment and a place to put it. So then you've got software, hardware, you've got some ideas, you've got some walkthroughs. Now you have to make it work. Security is about being an expert in the thing you've never heard of. Sysadmin is the same thing. That's what we do at work. We're authorities on getting better, learning quickly, adapting, taking things and fixing them. That's what this is about. You can do all this stuff. I started with an art degree and a minor in ceramics. I liked computers because they were fun and I had seen hackers. That was my motivation to getting into this field. Then I come to find out it's real. Then I come to start trying this stuff and finding out I can do it. You can do it too. And that's it. Hit me up. Anything you like. I'll be happy to give you the slides if you want them. I'll be happy to talk your ear off about everything I've got and show you what's on my laptop, what I carry around with me for practice on the fly. But more than that, go out there and try it. Come back next year and you present. I've presented, I keep presenting, I keep trying to find new things to talk about. Every year I find better stuff. Yesterday in Pittsburgh, I saw a guy present research on robots.txt. He opened with, I know this is boring, and I know I didn't really get any conclusions out of this, but he walked through what he did. He wrote a script on the fly when he was at home watching cartoons with his kid. You can do that too. The research doesn't have to be groundbreaking. It doesn't have to be thought leadership. But other people can learn from your mistakes. They can learn from your successes. They can learn from your process. So, thanks.